Good evening, everybody. Where we last left our heroes was page 7. They exited the house as quickly as they had come in. Sarah was already behind the perimeter with the little boy, whom paramedics were examining. Patrol officers had pulled up in their cars, and there was a fire truck standing by. The news cameras were rolling, but Kiri didn't have time to humor them. "Take Mr. Warren to Detective Spencer," she said to the SWAT member. "He's going to ask you some questions, Derek, and then we'll take you and your son safely to the station." Derek nodded and was led away. Kiri holstered her service weapon and walked over to where Sarah was standing with the boy. He looked even more scared than he did when she first saw him. As Kiri approached, she noticed a little girl in the next yard with skin almost as fair as Kiri's and Connor's, with dark brown hair and a shirt that was probably once white. She was about the boy's age. Kiri turned to the boy. What was his name? She tried to picture the file she had read, thinking about the line that read, "Immediate family." Right next to Teresa Warren, spouse, deceased, was Kyle, she said finally, smiling at the boy. "You don't have to be scared of me. Police officers are here to help you." The boy didn't speak at first, but then stuttered, "Daddy told me not to talk to you." "He doesn't mind if you talk to us now," she said with a smile. She pointed to where his father was. "See, he's talking to one of my friends. His name is Detective Spencer, and he's a police officer too." Well, they technically weren't police officers, but she wanted to use terms the boy could understand. He was scared and didn't need a vocabulary lesson. "Really?" he asked. Kiri nodded and put her hand gently on the boy's shoulder. He recoiled, and she withdrew her hand. "Kyle," she said, getting down onto one knee. She was now shorter than he was. "I just want to ask you a few questions. I promise I won't hurt you. I'd never hurt you." He believed her and nodded slowly. "Okay. First of all, are you hurt?" He shook his head. "Okay, that's good. I'm glad." She glanced at the little girl, who was staying back but watching intently. She must be friends with Kyle, Kiri thought. She looked very concerned for him, but also intrigued that police officers had come to her neighborhood. And she was completely unsupervised, something Kiri planned to check out soon. "Next question," she said. "What do you have in your hand?" Kyle clutched it tighter, before remembering that Kiri wasn't going to hurt him. His grip loosened, and he opened it up, revealing not one thing, but two things. The first was a rubber lizard, with its little rubber tongue sticking out. Kiri smiled at that. Then she noticed the other thing. It was a hard drive, with the numbers 300 and the letter G written on the front. The B was smeared off, and Kiri noticed that it was USB compatible. "Kyle, may I have that computer drive, please?" "I'll let you keep your lizard." Kyle shook his head and clutched it to his chest. "Daddy said to keep it, in case I needed to run away." "Ah," Kiri said, knowing she'd get it sooner or later. No point in upsetting the boy. Sarah seemed to be taking mental notes as she watched the exchange. "Where did your daddy say to run if you needed to?" "I'm not supposed to tell anyone," Kyle said. "You can tell me, and I promise nothing bad will happen," Kiri told him. She noticed his eyes traveling to the little girl's house. It was equally as run down as his house, but this one had no geraniums on the front porch. "Were you supposed to go to your friend's house?" Kyle stared at her for a moment, and then nodded. "Okay, buddy. Is that your friend?" Kyle turned to the little girl and nodded. "Thank you, Kyle." She saw that the bomb squad had exited the house, carrying the bomb in their case. She was glad they had resolved that, but not surprised. Very rarely did a bomb go off when she called them in, and she had seen them disarm one with less than 30 seconds left. She stood up and said to Sarah, "Keep track of him and make sure he's comfortable. He can ride with you back to the station." Kyle looked at Sarah and then ran up to Kiri. "No," he said, running into her and looking up. "I want to ride with you." "Sarah will take care of you, Kyle," Kiri said softly. "I want to ride with you." Kiri sighed and nodded. "All right. Stay with Sarah until I'm ready to leave, okay?" The little boy nodded, and she walked away, toward the little girl whose eyes were widening as she approached. "Hi there," Kiri said. The little girl turned and was ready to run when Kiri said, No, don't run away. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. You're not in trouble. I just want to talk to you." She turned back around and faced Kiri. "Are you a police officer?" she asked, as though she had never seen one before. "I am," Kiri said with a smile, showing the little girl the badge. "My name's Kiri. What's yours?" "Amber," the little girl answered. "I want to be a police officer when I grow up," she said. Kiri beamed. "That's a very good goal, Amber." She stopped about a meter away from the little girl and invited her. Why don't we go sit down on your front steps and have a talk? The little girl didn't seem to mind following her around the corner, and they covered the short distance to her front steps. Once they sat, in full view of everyone at the crime scene, Kiri asked, "Is Kyle your friend?" Amber nodded. "Was he planning on staying with you if he needed to?" Amber didn't nod, but she didn't shake her head. She just stared. "You can tell me, Amber. It's okay." "Mom and Dad'll get mad at me," Amber said. "Okay, I won't tell them you told me. Promise." Amber thought for a moment. "Yeah," she answered. Kiri nodded. "Are your mom and dad home?" They went out," Amber answered. "How old are you, Amber? You can tell me, it's okay." 8, Amber said after a moment's hesitation. Kiri nodded. "All right, how old is Kyle?" 7, Amber answered. "His birthday was last week." "Ah, okay, so you're a bit older than him. I bet you look out for him, huh?" "I guess," Amber said. "Have you been over to his house?" "Yeah, tons of times." Kiri nodded. "Did you ever notice anyone over there other than him and his dad?" Amber nodded. "But I wasn't supposed to be there." "Did they know you were there?" She said. "Me and Kyle hid." "Did you hear anything they said?" We were at the top of the stairs, but then we hid in his room. Do I get to go to the police station?" Kiri smiled. "I think so," she said. She wasn't supposed to be left home alone anyway, and she could have heard what was said about the project. "We'll give your parents a call and let them know where you are. Do they go out often and leave you alone?" "I guess, but they have to," Amber said. "Why's that?" Kiri asked casually. "'Cause they got stuff to do," Amber said, as though that was the most obvious explanation on earth. Kiri smiled. That was no excuse, but this little girl didn't know that. "Okay. Want to follow me, and I'll show you and Kyle the police station?" Amber nodded eagerly and jumped up. She trotted alongside Kiri as the CSI lieutenant collected Kyle and got the kids into the car. She turned to Justin, who was standing nearby. "I'm going to go ahead and take them to the station. You and Sarah follow behind me and get them situated. Nikki," she said to McAllister, who was also standing nearby, "you help Mr. Banning close up here and rope this area off. Make sure Detective Spencer books Derek as a first-degree suspect," she added quietly so Kyle didn't hear. The two children were in the back seat of the car, belted in and talking quietly to each other. Amber was doing most of the talking. Kiri got in front and started the capacitor, looking behind her and asking, "Okay, everyone's still buckled up? Good." She pulled away from the house and drove to the station with the two children. Amber asked non-stop questions along the way, and Kiri patiently answered all of the eager child's inquiries. Once at the station, Kiri led them into the waiting area, where she filled out a few forms and told the receptionist to contact Amber's parents. Then she put the two children in different questioning rooms and began talking to Amber, then to Kyle, and finally to Derek. She had ordered choice tests for all three as well. By the time she had finished, she had been assured that someone would take care of both children overnight, and it was well after dinner time. In fact, it was now dark outside. "Kiri, we've got this," Justin told her. "I know, we can do everything else in the morning. We're all exhausted. I'll go home, Justin, don't worry." "The question's when you'll go home," Justin said with a smile. Kiri smirked. "Don't push it," she said. "Give me a few more minutes to secure things here, and then I'll leave. If I didn't know better, I'd think you were trying to get rid of me." Justin chuckled and shook his head. In another few minutes, Kiri was convinced that the rest of the work could be done in the morning. She said "well done" to her team as she exited through the CSI lab, then got in her car and drove back to her LaGrange, Illinois home. And we'll read more tomorrow.